Morning, or depending when you're listening to this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today I am showing you around from Norwich Regional Championships. I went down to the lovely Athena Games in Norwich, one of my favourite venues in the UK, and I do not mind saying that out loud. Thank you to all the people down there. They made it super easy for us to record. They made us incredibly welcome, and I thank them for it. And I recorded a whole bunch of games from their regional championship, one of which you are seeing now. The format for this is expanded and breakpoint is legal, so the format here is from black and white all the way to breakpoint. We are playing 50 minutes best of 3 black and white to breakpoint, so sit yourselves down, grab yourselves a nice beverage, hot or cold, your choice, and enjoy this game from Norwich Regional Championships. 50 minutes best of 3 black and white to breakpoint. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we've got Siobhan Butcher on the left. He is going to be playing Night March with Archeops, of all things. And on the right, we have got Toby, or as we prefer to call him, Tubbs Woolner. Gonna be honest, never asked about that nickname, ladies and gentlemen. Probably should. Real name Toby, likes to be called Tubbs. Not a particularly fat man, I'm gonna be honest. A rather svelte man. Although he does have a Snorlax playmat, so maybe that explains it. So we see a couple of trainer's mail straight away from Siobhan. That allows him to look at the top. Well, it should be the... Okay, there we go, yeah. I got confused by his hand, which is 5 cards. So you get to look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and you get to grab an item card that you find there, a trainer card, sorry, that you find there, and put it into your hand. Could be a supporter, an item, stadium, etc. But it could not be a Pokemon or an energy. So we actually weirdly see, and this is not the best start ever, he uses 2 trainer's mail, and he ends up with 2 Puzzle of Time, which he plays to get 2 trainer's mail back. Puzzle of Time being that new item card that came around in the later set Breakpoint. If you play 2 of them at one time, it allows you to grab any 2 cards from your discard pile and put them back into your hand. In a deck like Night March, you want to be using them to get DCEs back mid-game, etc. You do not want to be using them to grab 2 trainers mail turn 1. So clearly not much from Siobhan here, but actually it he's going to get his turn 1 Archeops. He Ultra Balls both of those for any one Pokemon, and it's going to have to be something that isn't a Shaman, because he needs to not draw cards. So I was going to say, presumably a Pumpkaboo, maybe a Feebas. But if he's playing Puzzle of Time, the overwhelming likelihood is that he's playing that instead of Milotic, so it basically has to be a Night Marcher. We see there that the only cards in his deck are Maxies, Hidden Ball Trick, and I believe there is another Night Marcher, a Joltik, and a Dimension Valley, and that is a turn 1 Archeops. Now the question is, has he gone for the Archeops at the expense of getting Night Marches in his discard? But actually here, we see an Ultra Ball getting rid of a Lampent. We see that he's got a Shaman. We see that he's got a Sycamore in hand, which he obviously can't play because he already played the Maxies. As he throws his cards around. And let's not... and that next Sycamore's going to get a couple of Night Marches. And let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that Siobhan is going first. It's his first turn. He doesn't need a discard pile full of Night Marches. He needs to be in a position where next turn he's doing a nice big attack. So Toby here, he's got the Spirit Link on the Manectric. Now that's an interesting play. Now we saw Toby at Blackpool Regionals. I believe he did play a Muscle Band, if I remember correctly. Oh, and there's a Battle Compressor. Siobhan would like one of those on his turn. Get rid of some of those Night Marchers. Now, he gets that Spirit Link on the Manectric. Of course, he cannot evolve that Manectric next turn. And we see he is playing the Mega Manectric Rayquaza list. Now, we did see him play this deck against Ryan Morehouse's Evil Tout in a very entertaining game from Blackpool Regionals. And we see straight away he is dumping his Rayquaza with Battle Compressor. Why would he do that? Because what's the point? Manectric, he has decided, is a better attacker here. And Mega Manectric has a far greater HP. So Mega Manectric is better in this matchup. He's giving up 2 prizes, whatever. So Toby has decided, you know what? I can go with Mega Manectric here. If I can have 210 HP and be healing 30 damage every turn with that rough Seize that I've put in play, and we see him going for a Hooper with an Ultra Ball there. Allows him to grab any free EX Pokemon, and we imagine there's going to be, well, I was going to say a Manectric. There's a Caldeo that can rush in and retreat, act as a permanent switch, and then a Jirachi to get a supporter. So what Toby's going to be saying here is, look, I've got 210 HP. 210 HP is very difficult for you to be able to hit with Night March. That is essentially 11 Night Marches. So I feel, or 10 and something like a Fighting Fury belt. I feel pretty confident that you ain't going to be doing that. So I'm feeling pretty good. So he just passes over. He used his Jirachi there to go and search out a Getsis. But the thing is, now Shivam knows that Toby's got a Getsis. He's going to be prepared for that Getsis. So we see a fairly brutal Sycamore, and they see his third puzzle of time going down there. So there will be no fourth puzzle of time. Well, there is going to be a fourth puzzle of time. What I mean is, you really want to play them as a pair to get the most out of it. That is not going to happen in this game. So we see a Battle Compressor coming down there, getting rid of 2 Lampants and a Pumpkaboo. And another Battle Compressor here. Now, that Manectric's got 170 HP. That is 9 Night Marches. These Night March Pokemon will Joltik for a DCE, Pumpkaboo for free energy, DCE plus a Dimension Valley, as it usually is, because Dimension Valley is a stadium that brings down the cost of Psychic-type Pokemon's attacks by 1. So they do 20 damage times the amount of Night Marches in the discard pile. Pokemon with the attack Night March. So Joltik there. Now we know Shivam's got a DCE. We've already seen it. Shivam needs to make sure that he's got 9 Night Marches in the discard so that he can get a one-hit KO on that Manectric. If Toby were then to Mega Revolve, then Shivam will need 2 more Night Marches in the discard to get the KO. Now that Archeops has an ability that stops your opponent's Pokemon from evolving, or at least evolving from their hand. But we know that Toby plays Hex Maniac. We've already seen him get one in the discard with a Battle Compressor, and we just see a Mr. Mime and a Gallade going down there. Interesting he doesn't want the Mr. Mime, especially with Manectric's Overrun attack. But I suppose Mega Manectric is really where Toby's going with this. Oh, does he have a DCE actually? I thought I saw one in his hand. I can't quite see now. Hopefully he does for him. And Toby can play that Hex Maniac to turn off Archeops' ability, which would then allow him to evolve from his hand. So there is a DCE there. But, oh, and a Dimension Valley comes down here. So he's got rid of that Rough Seas. Now he's, you would presume, got 9 Night Marches in the discard. Otherwise, there has been a gross miscalculation on his part. And honestly, for a Night March, oh, now that's interesting. He doesn't have the KO. It looks like 140 there. So that's 7 Night Marches, not the 9 he needed. Now, does he have Hex Maniac? And now this is going to be big. Now, if he's got... No. See, here's the problem. Toby really needs a Hex Maniac, which he obviously can't play now that he's used a Sycamore. He needs a Hex Maniac and a Mega Manectric. Oh, he super scoops up the Hooper. Now, is he going to search for a couple of Megas here, hoping that... Oh, has he only got 1 Mega? Now, presumably he plays 2 or 3. It's a big part of his deck. Toby's deck is actually built around using Mega Manectric to attack, and then attach 2 basic energy from his discard to one of his bench Pokemon. And he does that to build up either a second Manectric or... And just a reminder there that the Archeops is out, he cannot Mega Revolve. Or that Rayquaza that does a whole bunch of damage. You know, we've already said the Rayquaza is useless in this particular matchup. Now, Toby could there have gotten a KO with his Manectric. He would be doing 60 damage, which is enough to KO that 60 HP Pumpkaboo. The problem is, he's then leaving all of it, and he needs 2 energy attachments here. He would then be leaving both of his energy on his Manectric, and when it got inevitably KO'd, well, that's the end of the game, essentially. So Toby here needs to Mega Evolve. There we go. There's a VS Seeker. He's going to grab the Hex Maniac. Now we can play the Hex Maniac to turn off, amongst other things, Archeops' ability, meaning that he now can evolve and then he can get the KO. Now, does he have any energy in his discard pile? That's going to be the big question. Now, we know he's got an energy in hand, and we know that he can attach one energy, but what he really wants is a second Spirit Link. And what he really wants... Oh, he does have energy in his discard pile. That's pretty cool. What he really wants is... He wanted a second Spirit Link, or third Spirit Link as it would have been, and a second Mega, so that he could Mega Evolve that bench Manectric, because that... Shivam is playing Night March, and Night March loves going against EX decks. Oh, and we see a computer search coming down here, maybe for a double colorless energy? I mean, if he doesn't have one in hand, that will have to be what he's searching for. Now, what Shivam, like I say, they love these EX heavy decks. Oh, no, this is interesting. So here, it looks like he's actually going to go ahead and use a second Maxie's Hidden Ball trick to get his Gallade on the field, which is a good Pokemon. And Gallade's good, especially where you're searching for double colorless energies. Now, Night March loves EX decks, because you can KO EX decks nice and quickly, do a whole bunch of damage, and you're using non-EX Pokemon that give up 1 prize to KO EX Pokemon that give up 2 prizes. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out who's winning that race to 6 prizes. And there we do see the Maxies, but no DCE yet. Oh, you saw 2 off of that. Now, the Mega Manectric going up to 210 HP does make it much more awkward. So with, for instance, a Fighting Fury belt, then that means that you need 10 Night Marches in the discard, and you're only playing 12 in total. Now, Shivam there went to use Gallade's Premonition ability, forgetting, of course, that Toby had played a Hex Maniac on his turn. Now, here's an interesting play. Shivam has retreated to the Archeops. Now, you might be thinking, well, hang on a second, why has he retreated to Archeops? Archeops is doing very good work with making sure that the Manectric can't evolve. Well, the Archeops actually has more than 110 HP. So, actually, it's really not the end of the world. It's got 130 HP, which means he wouldn't be able to KO it. So he uses a Lysander, brings a Shaman into the active, takes a couple of prizes. No energy to attach. And Toby's going to need to do stuff like this. He's going to need to take 3 more prizes. Now, we saw in the previous turn that Shivam went ahead and got that Gallade on the bench. Gallade in this particular Mega matchup mitigates that 210 HP. Oh, there we do have a DCE there. So, like I've discussed, having 10 Night Marches in the discard out of your 12 in total and a Fighting Fury belt, otherwise you need 11 of your 12, can be very, very awkward indeed. But Gallade, as long as you've used a supporter for the turn, does 130 damage. And Manectric is weak to Gallade. Although, it doesn't look like Shivam's actually played a supporter yet this turn. He used that... Yeah. So he's going to need... Now, he's got a VS Seeker in hand. Oh, and that's a little... Ooh. Those are not great discards. That Fighting Fury belt, useful because it adds 40 HP and does more. And... Oh, did he not have... I thought he had a DCE in hand. So it looks like Shivam is desperately here searching for a DCE. Now, he had a Lysander in hand that he could have used if he had a DCE to, KO that Jirachi with a Joltik. Now, he has a DCE here. And it looks like he's just going to go straight ahead, KO that Mega Manectric with the Gallade. Because Archeops is still on the field, ladies and gentlemen. That Manectric does not have a Spirit Link. So even if Toby plays a Hex Maniac here to turn off the Archeops, he doesn't have a Spirit Link on that Manectric, so Mega Evolving would end his turn. Even after all of that, what it really comes down to is... we just need 1 Lysander from Shivam for the game. Now, a really fun little play there was that Jirachi. He's got an attack for 1 energy. He does 10 damage and discards a special energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. And when you do that, Jirachi then becomes immune for a turn. Now we see his premonition here from Shivam allows him to rearrange the top 5 cards of his deck. He's clearly going to put a double colourless on top of his deck. Of course he is. Now, here's the problem for Shivam with what Toby's doing. He's playing 4 DCE. His way of recovering DCE is playing 2 Puzzle of Time in one go. We know he's used at least 3. No, he's used all 4 Puzzle of Time, actually. We saw the 4th one that he used just to rearrange the top 3 cards of his deck. That's what happens if you just play 1 on its own. So he's not recovering any DCE. But he might only have used 2. He's got at least 1 left in his deck. So Shivam and Toby's got to take 3 prizes to win, and Shivam doesn't have any EXs on the field, so Toby's got to get 3 KOs in order to win this game. So Shivam's in a brilliant position. He can just sit there and go, well, okay, come at me, bro. What are you going to do? You know, Toby can even take a prize. Toby can take 2 prizes. And Shivam's got 3 Night Marches on the field, and Toby has got Hooper, who's weak to Pumpkaboo, assuming that a Dimension Valley stays out so Pumpkaboo can attack for 2 energy, not 3. And Toby has... And there we go, yeah. And there's the game. I was going to say, and Toby's got a Jirachi on the bench. So even if Toby had gotten 2 KOs, Shivam can just sit there, let Toby take some KOs, and all he needs to do is just... And we saw how little Shivam's deck was, and he did that beautifully. We saw him playing Battle Compressors to empty out his deck so there were less cards in his deck. Shivam could just sit there and go, look, you've got to take 3 individual KOs to win the game. And as long as you only take 2, I'm going to have a Night Marcher on the bench. So you know what? You do what you're doing. I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to wait until I've got a DCE and a Lysander in hand, and then I've guaranteed got the game anyway, so it's really not an issue. The only way... No, and see, even if Toby had killed both of the Joltics and gotten rid of the Dimension Valley so the Pumpkaboo couldn't attack, well, that means he hasn't KO'd the Gallade, and he's attacking with Manectric, and Gallade hits Manectric for weakness. So let's make no mistake about this, ladies and gentlemen. Shivam is playing a very interesting deck. I've not actually seen a Night March with Gallade and Archeops before. It's a brilliantly inventive little deck. And Toby's playing a very interesting deck. We saw it in Blackpool against Ryan Morehouse's Evil Tau. In fact, if I remember, I shall put a link to that game in the description as I keep referencing it. But make no mistake about it. Night March against an EX deck, it's rough enough for Toby without the fact that Shivam's got a Gallade that can one-hit KO that Mega EX, which is basically this deck's out against Night March. It's really rough. So we see a turn 1 gets this here. We saw this in the previous game. Oh my good. Oh, actually, no, that's not a bad gets this. Because if Shivam could have had... I mean, Shivam's still got a good hand. He's got a Sycamore in hand. But if Shivam could have played 2 Battle Compressors on turn 1 with Night March, that's a guaranteed 6 Pokemon in the disc. That's guaranteed 6 Night Marches in the discard. Now, here's the thing. Night March can get 9 Night Marches or 8 and a Fighting Fury bout in the discard in one turn. Also, if Shivam could... So Shivam's got a chance here. Shivam here, he's got the Dimension Valley. He's now got 1 Night Marcher in the discard. If he can get either... and there's a Fighting Fury bout. So he needs 7 Night March Pokemon in the discard and a DCE, and he wins the game this turn. Because he's got a chance of doing it, let me quickly say a huge thank you to Shivam and to Toby for agreeing to be on stream. It's always a pleasure. People very, very rarely say no to being on stream, and I really appreciate anyone who does go on stream, because it means I can commentate these games and you lovely people can watch them. And thank you to everyone at Athena Games for being lovely enough to make it, and they didn't just allow us to record. Oh, and there's one of those Battle Compressors, that's going to... And there's the DCE. This is getting closer and closer, ladies and gentlemen. They had a lovely little extra room. They had a whole bunch of stock in there. And what they did, they actually put a judge in there every round. They set us up a little table next to a plug and let us record. And it's lovely and bright in there, as you can see. Just wonderful people. So this is the entire game for Shivam now. Now, don't get me wrong. What he doesn't... And there is a balance to be met here. Because what Shivam wants to do is just go absolutely nuts here. and just try and... Oh, if he gets a puzzle of time there. Yes, he does get a puzzle of time. So he can play 2 and grab like a battle compressor and an Ultra Ball, and that might be enough. Because Siobhan wants to try and make sure he's got 8 Night Marches in the discard. But he also... Oh, and called it, ladies and gentlemen. Called it, because he's got a Joltik in the hand he can get rid of with that Ultra Ball. He wants to make sure he gets 8 Night Marches in the discard. That will do 160, plus the Fighting Fury about extra 10 will do 170. So that means that he will get the win this turn. What he doesn't want to do is go absolutely nuts, play too many cards, discard too many things, not get the KO, and then run out of steam mid-game and give Toby a win because he's had nothing. But it looks like he is going to do it this turn, and this is what Night March does against EX-heavy decks, or indeed against any deck that ever has a slow start. And it's what Night March does, ladies and gentlemen. This is Night March's MO. And it's depressing. And you got to feel for Toby here. Just sitting watching as Siobhan plays card after card after card after card after card. And here we go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that is the magic number. 160 plus the 10 for the Fighting Fury. That is 170. And that is the win. Disappointing for Toby. And we saw there he did not have a great opening hand, but what can you do, ladies and gentlemen? That Sycamore would have been one he drew off the Getsis, so he couldn't have played that turn 1. It happens, unfortunately. This is what Night March does. So congratulations to Siobhan, commiserations to Toby. Thank you to everyone at Athena Games and to the chaps involved. And you know the deal. Click that like button. It will take but a second if you by Toby. If you haven't clicked it yet, why have you not clicked it? Do you hate me on a personal level? Make sure that you comment if you've got anything to say. Try and keep it nice. But as we've seen on most commentary games, somebody makes a little mistake. I haven't seen one, but if you have, that's what the comment section's for. But please be nice. And of course, subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, find a friend to subscribe on your behalf. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, the very most important thing, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.